Have you had the situation where you've given somebody feedback, you've taken time, you've planned what you're going to say, and yet it still lands badly? Well, this is part 2 of a series of vlogs I'm doing about feedback, where we're going to explore how to ensure your feedback lands well. My name's Jackie Forbes and I'm the principal of Drawn to Learn, and we're drawn now to the art of giving feedback. So I'm going to share 2 top tips for preparing to give feedback. In the first, we're going to look at how you calibrate for receptivity. And as I talk through the different levels of receptivity, have in mind the person you need to give feedback to and yourself, because you may need to work on your own receptivity. So we're going to start with feedback thimbles. A thimble receptivity level means the person can take just about a thimbleful of feedback. And that's praise or constructive feedback. Now, it could be argued that they're self-referenced. They set their own standards and they measure themselves against them. And you might find that even when you give developmental feedback carefully and empathetically, their brain filters only for criticism and they may react defensively. When praising thimbles, you may see a shoulder shrug and hear, "It's just my job." And the results of this type of response are that people are less likely to want to give thimbles feedback. Being receptive to only a thimble level of feedback can lead to a person having a blind spot. Let's look at feedback buckets. If a thimble is internally referenced, a bucket's likely to be externally referenced. In other words, they gauge if they're doing okay by asking or gathering the reactions of others. The upside is they're up for feedback, actually lots of it. The only problem is it can slop over the edge of the bucket and not be acted on. Giving people quantity instead of quality priority feedback means they may not focus on the area that's going to have the biggest impact for them. Let's look at feedback tumblers. This is what to aspire to in terms of being receptive to feedback yourself. You'll be good at receiving feedback because you listen carefully, ask for examples, and proactively suggest what you could do differently, and you check in over time to see if you're having a better impact. You're actually a pleasure to give feedback to because you delight in the positive feedback and can say a simple thank you to the giver, and you're grateful for thoughtfully given developmental feedback which you take in adult mode. Actually, you impress the feedback giver by sharing your plan for what you're going to do differently, and again, you simply thank the person. It's so often the case that you can enhance your reputation by the graciousness with which you receive feedback that's hard to hear. Giving feedback to a thimble. So, think carefully about time and place for the discussion. Ensure you only have 1 or 2 pieces to give, and invest in giving the person well-observed praise over time to ensure they have respect for you as a source of feedback. Encourage self-assessment first and allow them time to mull over the feedback. And actually ensure there's a strong woofum factor. That means, what's in it for me? Giving feedback to a bucket, apply the same approach as for a thimble, but emphasize the self-assessment piece and spend time hearing how they are going to use the developmental feedback. Offer a follow-up observation and comment. The ratio of praise needs to be stepped up too. When it comes to giving feedback to a tumbler, take a best practice approach and enjoy their reaction when you give praise, and follow up with the appreciation or your appreciation of the adjustments they make if you've given them developmental feedback. So now for my second top tip, and that's how to hit the sweet spot. So those of you who play sport with a bat or racket will know exactly what's meant by the sweet spot. It's that magic point which the ball hits and seems to really soar. So here's how to have the same impact when giving positive feedback. So let's analyse the different types of positive feedback there are. We'll start with flattery, and it sounds like this. "Ooh, you're so good at presenting, wish I was as good as you." Now, flattery never really feels like a valued statement. We have compliments. Might sound like this. "That was an enjoyable presentation, you sounded great." Now, there's no problem with that type of feedback, but it won't have hit the sweet spot. Now, praise sounds like this. That presentation was well delivered, I found it clear and concise, and you handled the question well. Now, I'm starting to like that type of feedback, but we can go one stage further. So let's introduce you to value-based praise, and it sounds something like this. That presentation was well delivered. The way you structured your points and then called for action has resulted in 5 people signing up to support our cause. So what was different with that? This is value-based praise. So if we go back to the iceberg, remember values drive behaviour. So if the person received this feedback had a value that they wanted to make a difference, then the way the feedback's been formed has absolutely told them that this is what they've done. It's a great feeling when what is important to you becomes the outcome. Top tips for giving value-based praise. Look at the behaviour that you want to give the positive praise about. Ask yourself, what's the reason the person's using that positive behaviour for? How is it fulfilling or protecting a value they hold? Then link their value into the feedback that you give. So statements like, "You're a great listener," become, "The way you listened to us really allowed us space and time to get some important things out into the open, and we feel so much better for it, and we will be able to change how we work together." However, a word of caution. If the constructive feedback you give is going against a value that somebody holds dear, then the reaction you get will show that. So take even more care. I'll never forget the pain of being told in a 360 that I personally am unapproachable, given that a key value is I want people to feel good. So once I got over the piercing arrow and explored it more, it turned out that yes, when I'm deeply concentrating, I don't seem to notice that people are approaching me, so I don't look up and smile. So actually digging deeper into the perception of others helped me get a perspective that I'm not always unapproachable. So I wish you the best in your own feedback situations.